My name is Erin Colburn. I'm the Pre-Health Advising Coordinator for the College of Health Sciences here at Boise State University. I'm joined by Shannon Kerr, Ian Taylor Willis, who's our occupational therapy student on staff this semester. And what she is going to do and provide for us today is an opportunity to talk a little bit about some mental health that you might not be thinking about, even though you might be experiencing it. And we'll go from there. And then we have a guest speaker who will introduce towards the middle.
All right. So thanks for the introduction, Erin. I am going to be talking about stress, right? The big dreaded topic of it. I'm sure we're all feeling it, right? This is what used to be our spring break within the next week or so. And so I think we're all kind of feeling the impacts of it. And so I think it's important to talk about it as well as understand what we can do to manage it, right? And so first off, it happens to everybody, right? It's a normal product of our body. We have short-term stress. So we have like that one test that's coming up, our midterm or our final. Sometimes that can feel like kind of a one-time or a one moment stress, and then which can also be short-term. And then we have long-term. And so that can be considered maybe your whole schooling process, or maybe it is a relationship, or it's a career if you are working during school. Those things that it's going to continue to cause us stress, right? And so not all stress is bad. It's a survival function, right? Fight or flight. Our short-term stressors are actually good for us. There's research that shows that. However, long-term stress can actually cause a lot of harm. And so the specific bodily reactions that it causes can affect our other body functions. So that can include our immune system, our digestive system, our cardiovascular health, our sleep, our reproductive system, and that can also influence other things, right? So it increases our risk for heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, those kind of comorbidities, right? Those diseases that we're seeing a lot and that we can influence. Those are heavily influenced by stress. And so I think understanding your risk factors for it. So there's tons of research that shows students, especially undergraduate students, are an increased risk of it. That makes sense, right? You're in a really stressful time. However, there's research that also shows that pre-professional students or students who are interested in going off into other professional careers or graduate programs experience even higher levels of stress and anxiety than other majors. And so you guys participating in this actually have a great deal of risk factors within stress. And so we want to make sure that we manage it. So we want to understand what causes our stress and then also what we can do to cope with it. And so my favorite one that we're going to do is we're going to do a guided imagery. So we're going to go through a video. I'm going to pull it up, and I'll just pull up the noise so you can kind of hear it. But you'll look at this picture, just kind of close your eyes and give your body kind of a moment to just be in tune with itself. And so I'll play it. Give me a thumbs up to make sure y'all can hear it.
You're free to share your screen.
Okay. Dun, dun.
Close your eyes or avert your gaze to a spot in the room. Take a deep breath in, allowing your natural breath to come through your nostrils, hit the back of your throat, and exit your mouth. Just allow yourself to breathe in whatever way is natural for you. Breathing in and out. Noticing the change in temperature of your breath as it enters your nose, hits the back of your throat, and exhales in and out. I invite you to look and imagine in the distance a wooden pathway with a sandy beach up ahead. You begin to take steps towards the sandy beach, beginning to feel the cool, powdery sand underneath your feet. The smell of salt water begins to fill your nose and lungs, and you feel the warm air of the sun hit the top of your head. You walk ahead and notice in the distance a towel. You might choose to sit down and gaze out onto the horizon, noticing how the sun glistens on the top of the water. Beautiful blue and aqua. And you hear the rush of the waves as they crash on the shore and then recede back out to sea. You allow yourself to look far off into the horizon, imagining what's off in the distance, enjoying the sparkle of the sun on the beautiful water, feeling a cool breeze and the warmth of the sun against the top of your head and shoulders. You begin to feel more and more relaxed, more at peace. And taking a deep breath in and exhaling, feeling the sand between your toes. It's soft, soothing. And with another deep breath in, you begin to stand up, taking one last look at the water, the sparkling of the sun as it glistens on the top of it. And as you turn, you see a seagull flying ahead. You're feeling more refreshed, more alert, and more at peace. And as you make your way off the beach and towards the wooden path, remember that this place is always here for you. A place to rejuvenate, a place to relax, and a place to restore.
I watch those way too many times. There's tons of them, right? There's meditation one, there's guided imagery, there's progressive muscle relaxation. There's a lot of these mindfulness activities on YouTube that you can use to help manage your stress. You can use it to get better sleep. You can use it as even like a workout. There's tons of like walking and things like that that can be really beneficial to just being able to cope with those stressors that you're feeling. And then if we head to the next slide, these are some other strategies that you can do, right? These are just a few of them, but they're definitely individualistic, and you should find what works for you. And so like physical activity, I think we all know the benefits of physical activity, the endorphins, it makes us feel good, but that's just whatever activity you like to do, whether it's pickleball or hiking or just going for a walk. Doing something fun and that you enjoy might be really beneficial. Having something nutritious, right? The breathing techniques or the mindfulness that we just did, aromatherapy, whether that's candles or going outside or different essential oils, spending time with your support system, or just anything you enjoy, that's going to help counteract those effects of stress that we feel as a student. And so definitely after today, after dinner, or even tomorrow, when it's beautiful outside, find something to do to help cope with your stressors. And hopefully we'll kind of alleviate that stress that you're feeling. So thanks for letting me come and talk to you guys.
All right. So you want to do a pre-health pathway because we often hear students say, so you want to help people. So you might ask yourself, well, what is volunteerism and what does that mean? Well, it's the engagement of students or peoples with activities basically of not getting paid and not getting credit for it, where you give of yourself and it's not necessarily linked to coursework at all. It's meant to allow for you the opportunity to give back to those in need who maybe don't have as much as you might have. So there are lots of different types of volunteerism or volunteer activities that you can do. You can have activities and roles. You can do direct service. You might work for a company like Red Cross or Hearts and Home Hospice or something along those lines. You might hold a position with an opportunity within your school or community. Skill levels vary. Some of these volunteer activities don't require very many skills at all. It's just someone very willing to help and give of their time. Time commitments can be very simple. They can be a one-time commitment, or they can be episodic, or you have several different opportunities. You can travel, or you can stay close to home. You can also think about the project structures. Like we have service learning here at Boise State University indoctrinated into some of our courses. And oftentimes I think of those as, well, those wouldn't necessarily be volunteer. They're community service efforts that allow you to network with other people and other groups and maybe open doors for you to gain some experience or interact with others who, let's, for example, say you really liked the agency that you worked with when you were doing service learning. And in turn with that, you end up doing more volunteerism after that. Again, this is a social action. It can be involved with public concerns or issues. I always think about the Agency for New Americans. They're a refugee group that helps refugees get situated in our community. The importance of volunteerism for a pre-health pathway student is, yes, it's technically a requirement, but there's a reason behind it. The more you learn about yourself, the more you understand where your place is in the world. Being able to volunteer and give of yourself helps you understand maybe how you want to be a physician, or maybe how you want to be an occupational therapist, or whatever it might be. It also allows you to see what kinds of social skills you can gain, cultural competency, for example. Other pieces to this is think about networking opportunities. I know some of you may feel right now like there just isn't a way to get in and see a physician or a dentist and observe them because of COVID. But that doesn't mean you have to sit on your hands. If you interact with groups of individuals that are doing volunteerism, oftentimes you interact with those who are physicians, who are dentists, who are occupational therapists, and that can open up doors for you. You could see your field in action in some of these cases. It's not limited to that type of volunteerism, but it certainly is an option. So how can you volunteer? Well, you can find some opportunities on campus. We have lots of different things that students don't realize are available. There's Super Saturday, there's the pantry, there's also opportunities in our own community. There's some of them which are with agencies. Where in a few minutes, we're going to have a representative from Hearts and Home Hospice, which is one of my favorite volunteer groups that we have a lot of our students participate in. You can also look at the Red Cross. You can look at Interfaith Sanctuary, the food bank. Those are some of those examples. But here's what I would say to you is most important. Do something you enjoy. Don't just do it because someone told you to do it. Do it because you think it will make a difference, that you will have an ability to learn and grow. Find opportunities that match your interests and skills, because we find that when you do something you enjoy, or you do something that will teach you something new, but you've already kind of learned how to do, you're going to do so much better in it. You're going to love it. You're going to enjoy it, and you're going to learn from it in a lot of different ways. So with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Desiree Steiner. She is a representative from Hearts and Home Hospice. Again, one of my most favorite companies that works here in the Treasure Valley.
Trying to turn my camera on. I think it came on. Hey everybody, I'm Desiree Steiner. Like she said, I'm from Heart and Home Hospice. I've been here for 9 years. I haven't been a volunteer coordinator the whole time, but I've been a few different places within the company. But the whole time I've been here, I've been a volunteer. So real quick, what we do in hospice, in case you're not familiar, we're a patient and family support system. We keep patients comfortable. We teach families how to provide care, and we provide emotional and spiritual support at end of life. So end of life, that's anybody with a terminal diagnosis with a 6-month or less prognosis. A big misconception with hospice or hospice volunteering is they're just gonna come and watch patient, sit with patients as they die, which isn't the case. Our volunteers can do so much leading up to a patient's actual passing. We have a special group of volunteers called 11th hour volunteers that are actually there at end of life. But for the most part, our volunteers go in and they provide companionship for patients. A lot of times our patients are in facilities, they don't have a lot of visitors, they get lonely. Of course, COVID has really changed things recently, but we are starting to get back into the swing of things, luckily. But yeah, companionship, life review. Our patients have stories they want to tell, but don't necessarily have the capability of writing or typing, rarely. So our volunteers can help with stuff like that, light housekeeping, meal prep, and then other like specialized projects. I try to match volunteers with patients that have like interests if possible, like gardening or fishing, quilting, stuff like that. So we can get people together and they can kind of live out their hobbies through their volunteers. And it is, like she said, it's a great way to learn and gain experience with maybe the geriatric community isn't a community you're used to conversing with. So it's a good way to get experience doing that. For myself, I love and not all of our patients are geriatric patients. We do have patients of all ages, but for the most part, they are geriatric. And that's where my heart is. I have trouble communicating with children. If I volunteer somewhere, I try to stick with the older community. I just get along with them more. I'm not sure why, but they're my people. But yeah, and then you can also learn a little bit more about hospice and what end of life really looks like. And like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what hospice is. And the more people that know about it and what it actually entails, the better. We do reimburse for mileage if you become a volunteer with us. I do try and find volunteer assignments close to where you live or work, so you're not driving all around. I know as students that your time is precious. And then, yeah, yes, we reimburse mileage, and you can volunteer as little or as much as you want. Whether it's one hour a month or 1 hour a week. 1 hour a week is probably pushing it with your busy school schedules. But if you are interested, you can visit our website, gohospice.com, and we have a volunteering tab. You can look at the entire website to get a better idea what we're about. But the volunteering tab, website, it's not there, that's not now. I can attach the website to the chat, I think. And then, yeah, the application's there. We have a training. I can schedule trainings whenever. I try to be really flexible for you guys. So, yeah.
What kinds of questions do you have for Desiree?
Hi, I'm Isabella. I have a question about, is it at a place, or do we go to their homes, or how is that?
Great question. Yeah. So as hospice providers, we provide care where the patient lives. So we don't have a facility, but we have patients that live in facilities. We have patients that live in their homes, in their caregivers' homes. So we go to where they live.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Desiree, what do you think is the best part about volunteering for a hospice organization?
The stories, the patients, they've lived great long lives, and I mean, even the ones that aren't super long, they just have great stories. And no matter how you're helping, you get to hear those stories, and they seem like they've all lived amazing lives. It makes me feel really boring. Like, oh my gosh, you guys are all so great.
What's the worst?
Probably when they pass away. When you get attached to someone, and sometimes, it doesn't take very long. sweet people, and then they do pass away. Sometimes it's only weeks, sometimes it's years, but they do all eventually pass away.
What do you think is your greatest need right now for the company? Like, where are the volunteers needed the most right now?
Right now, with COVID, like I said, we're just now starting to kind of open back up to actually making visits. So right now, I'm actually needing help with like tuck-in calls. So someone would actually come into the office and just call patients and say, hey, how are you doing? Do you have all your meds? Do you have all supplies to make through the week or the weekend? But we are slowly starting to open things back up. So I'm actually putting together a more detailed infection control, like with competency for our volunteers, just so they're competent and safe out in the field, and then we can send volunteers out. Now, right now, I think just companionship. A lot of our patients have been isolated for a really long time, and they just need friends. But anybody that can play music too, like guitar, or I've got some ukulele players, anything like that is really nice too.
Well, we want to thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it. And I have what I've always told students about Hearts and Home Hospice is you're going to learn an abundance of information and you're going to fall in love with it. It's very rare to hear someone say, nope, I don't want to do this anymore. I find that everybody sticks with it for a little while. We've had several of our graduates participate, and one in particular, Dr. Billy Gallagher, is he's now a full-time family practice physician, and I know he works with your company quite a bit.
Yes,
so.
He's our medical director. He recently, back in December, became a certified hospice medical director. So he knows all the hospice things. And yeah, he's here all the time, and very important part of our team.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We want to be thoughtful about your time. We also wanted to let you know you're more than welcome to stick around with the video off and the mute. We're just going to go through some other things real quick. Students, you have the information available to you, the email address and the other factors. So if you're interested in participating in this type of volunteerism, I'd encourage it. All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. So how do you know you want to be in the healthcare field? Well, I think part of that comes from gaining some exposure to patients, right? Can you be around those folks? And so turning the time over to Ian, would you like to talk a little bit about patient exposure and its importance?
Sure. So, like mentioned previously, with the importance of volunteerism, it's very important to gain patient exposure when you're wanting to go into a pre-professional pathway like medical or dental or PT. First of all, it gives you more familiarity with the actual field. If you didn't have any sort of patient exposure or experience in the field, you wouldn't necessarily know what you're getting into. It also can help establish a greater interest in the field. You're actually getting to see what's done on a day-to-day basis. It can actually get you more excited to pursue a career there. Like I said, it really keeps you familiar with the roles of the position as well as some of the challenges associated with the job. It's better that you learn those earlier rather than, you're working there your first day and you're stuck learning like all the difficult things and the things you may not enjoy as much as part of the job. And of course, it could be a requirement for the programs you're looking at. So there's plenty of opportunity to gain patient exposure. It may be a little difficult now with everything going on around the pandemic, but some of the common areas we see students gaining some exposure are in hospitals, nursing facilities, hospice, and different clinics. And locally, we have Hearts and Home Hospice, who just came and spoke to us. Keystone Hospice and Home Watch Caregivers are some popular ones we'll see. Can I have the next slide, Aaron? Thanks. Well, I think this is where I turn it over to Shannon to talk about the patient.
Nope, I'm doing this one.
Oh, okay. All right, Erin.
Sorry. So St. Alphonsus is, of course, a hospital, and it's an example where you can gain some patient exposure. And oftentimes students are concerned about going out and getting a full license as a CNA, or going out and getting a phlebotomy or EMT. And those are certainly options for you. And I don't want to dissuade you from doing that. But that requires an investment and some money to get those certifications if you don't already have them. What I love about St. Al's is they have a couple of positions that are entry level that do not require you to have some of those certifications. One of those is the patient safety attendant. There are quite a few actually positions open right now to be a safety attendant, even during COVID. And these individuals will work for the hospital. They'll sit in an ER, an emergency department, and they'll sit on the floor with the patient. They're helping them to make sure that they don't harm themselves by falling and getting out of bed when they need some assistance. They're also there to support them if there are some things going on in their life, mental health issues or anything like that, where they might be of harm to themselves. So they're there to protect the patient, and especially when someone maybe doesn't have another individual to sit with them, you're there to support them, and you can do a lot of different things. Some of my students that have done the patient safety attendant have done it their entire college education. And what's really cool about it is that you often can interact with patients and talk to them, learn a little bit about their history. You might be able to read to them. You might be able to do lots of different things. And some of the patient safety attendants actually come up with plans with the patient so that they can create a safe environment for them. So it's a really cool opportunity. Another example of an entry-level position at either St. Alphonsus or St. Luke's is looking at orderlies, those individuals who maybe transport patients back and forth. There's volunteer activities where you might be able to deliver flowers, and you might not think that that's a huge deal, or that you're not going to get the coolest opportunities, but you'd be surprised how often I've had students come back and tell me when they've done some of those things that they've learned an immense amount about a person, depending on their interactions. And so I do encourage you to think about that in a broad sense. You can look at the St. Al's or the St. Luke's website under careers and look for patient safety attendants. There's CNA positions, there's medical assistant positions, there's pharmacy tech positions, all sorts of places. There's lots of ways to gain patient exposure in either a volunteer or a paid atmosphere. Some of our students have even done some virtual patient exposure where they've done the crisis hotline, where they've made calls or answered texts and gained some patient exposure there, or went down to a shelter where they might interact with those that have been suffering from child abuse or anything like that. So there's lots of different opportunities for patient exposure. Right. So what's it like, Ian?
So, like it says, similarly to patient exposure, with observation, like shadowing, for example, you're going to gain experience again in that field. It's going to touch on the things I mentioned earlier with patient exposure of, actually learning what a day-to-day role would be in that sort of position. Again, it will help establish a greater interest. You'll get to learn more about the field just from being there. You'll get to be able to gain more connections with people within the field and just learn more about their day-to-day life. And again, you'll get to learn those rewarding and challenging aspects, and it may be required for your chosen school. Again, there are many local places that you can actually get observation. We usually encourage students initially to, reach out to their, personal doctors and dentists based on what they're interested in pursuing. Some of the areas, we'll see are, again, those general offices, health centers, hospitals, occasionally laboratories. And the main ones we'll really see, not really in the personal sort of things, are the Boise VA, Terry Riley, and Genesis Community Health.
Who to talk to, how to learn more about the field that you're interested in. So I am going to do this. So we actually had OnDemand Scribing come to the freshman cohort group, and they did a presentation about what scribing is. Scribing is another really great example of how you might be able to gain some observation almost on steroids. It really gives you a full experience of interacting with a physician or a physician assistant. It is open to all different types of fields if you are interested in learning more about the healthcare system. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to put the video in the chat, and you're more than welcome to watch this after the presentation today. But this is an example. So scribing can be an example of gaining some observation. And other ways that you can gain some observation, we're going to talk about just in 1 second. So I'm going to post this to the chat. All right, so you might want to save that video for later. But what we're going to go through real quick is just some other examples of observation that you can go through. Shannon? Did we lose Shannon?
Okay, I'm right here. Sorry, I was trying to find my unmute button. So right now we're in this crazy world where shadowings and observations, it's not that easy. We can't just go talk to doctors, be like, hey, let me follow you around. It's just not happening. But, you know, like as was mentioned earlier, the world is opening back up and we will see those things again. But right now, one of the things that's available is virtual observation. That's online remote shadowing. Some things to be careful about, that you never ever pay for any of these experiences. If someone says, we've got this great deal for you, but it's going to cost you this much, that's a bad deal. Get out of there. You don't want to use that. You want to make sure they're using real practitioners, real doctors, not charging you, and you're using real doctors. And you never ever want to use this virtual observation as a substitute for in-person shadowing. Instead, use it as an opportunity to gain relationships with practitioners across the country. Some examples of some places you can do some virtual observation: Club Med, pre-health shadowing, virtualshadowing.com. We've also got a lot of school information sessions happening all the time. Last week we met with Western University. We've had UW here. We've had multiple people come talk about what their school does. ICOM does a lot of programs. And then they also mentorship programs. Next.
Right. There's also in-person observation examples. So while WorkU, the internships that are available through WorkU at Boise State University don't promise you an observation opportunity with the physicians, you get to often interact with them, whether you're working for Blue Cross or you're looking for St. Alphonse or St. Luke's. And those are opening up as we go. There's research opportunities through WorkU where you might interact with physicians. And that's the first step, is getting somebody, right? Knowing that who are the physicians in your area. Taj Orthopedics, Dr. Taj does internships with students in the fall, summer, and spring. We did have a spring group, and some of those students actually were from the fall. So watch for emails from us about those opportunities. St. Alphonsus and St. Luke's are opening their doors a little bit. St. Alphonsus probably a little bit more than St. Luke's in terms of those smaller clinics that might have physicians, might have occupational therapists, you name it. So ideally what you want to do is these links that we have available for St. Alphonsus, that would give you the information on how to gain observation through their locations. And what we advise students to do is with St. Alphonsus, they do require a letter of intent from your academic advisor. And so you can get that from our office. We can easily send that to you. St. Luke's is a little bit more tight right now and closed off. You do have to have 58 credits earned to be able to do observation with St. Luke's facilities, and that would be any type of practitioner. You also need to go through the My Clinical Exchange, which does cost a little bit of money to get the account open. But if you claim yourself as an observer and you're a free agent, then you usually don't have to participate in the background check, or you can get a minimal cost one to be able to participate. There's opportunity to observe at Genesis World Mission, the Friendship Clinic. Tara Riley has our organization for a lot of our community health workers. Hearts and Home Hospice. So I mentioned Dr. Billy Gallagher. I didn't just throw his name out for any just reason. He has reached out to us. He's a Boise State University alumni. He would love to have you volunteer for Hearts and Home and get that experience. And those students who participate in that can reach out to him through us to be able to, and Hearts and Home, and be able to possibly gain some experience. The last one is Atlantis. That is a international observation opportunity, and it's been around for years. They are still doing it. The only caveat with that is when you're observing through Atlantis, you have to understand you do have to pay for your trip. So you do have to travel over there. The other thing that comes with it is that you need to be aware that you don't want it to substitute for and only do Atlantis. You need to have US physician shadowing or US physician assistant shadowing or whatever it might be. But these are some examples. Some of our other fields are pre-health fields like pre-dentistry or chiropractic or physical therapy. Many of them are either doing telehealth, and that can be an option for you, or they're doing things like they're a little bit more open to doing some observation as long as their patients are okay with it. So what we're going to do next is I am going to send individual links to each of you. And I'm going to ask you to watch this 5-minute video. And you want to take notes. So you want to try and learn as much as you can from the video, because what we are going to do is we're going to put you together in groups of 2, and you're going to share what you've learned, and you're each getting a different video. Ian, I'm going to send you off with one. So just be aware of that you need to watch it because I'm going to partner you with someone else. All right. So give me 1 second. All right, you should each have a video, and I'm just going to ask you to take the next 5 minutes. I'm going to pause the recording. You're going to watch the video, and then once you're done, go ahead and either use a reaction for a thumbs up or give me a thumbs up that you have watched the video in its entirety. All right, we're just waiting for the rest of the groups to come back. All right. So talk to me. Who would like to share something that they learned about watching those videos?
One common theme that came up in both of our videos was grit and just the effort, putting in effort, especially during COVID, to get that shadowing experience, or at least attempt to get that shadowing experience. They'll take that into consideration as well.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
When I was listening, heard like just being professional in it, like attempt to get the experience, but if you can't, then find seminars, find things that show that you are very interested, you want to learn about this position that you're searching for.
Other ideas that you heard?
They'll take any sort of volunteer experience as long as it has to do with people and communication.
Except for in the case of maybe veterinarian, right? Like they would hope that you would have both people and animal experience, right? Michaela, did you hear anything different?
Not really, just to get experience is super important.
Right. Do you feel like it's bleak right now? Do you feel by hearing those recruiters talk that there's a wee bit of hope out there? It's okay to say, no, it's bleak. The world is ending.
I'm finding that things are starting to open up. So I've kind of started to see the hope at the end of the tunnel. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
I also think, what do you guys think about this? That by what they shared, they're saying they know you're struggling to find those opportunities. They used to be so easy to get, right? But you can't give up, and they know their importance. And that, so there's lots of different ways to get them, right? Does it make you want to go out and try and be like, oh, I can go do anything?
Yeah, and actually in my video, they said, like any physician in this case, like they've gone through it, so they're really willing to help you out. So it's just a matter of, how can they work around what's going on, and, potentially a virtual shadowing session or something like that, as long as you're able to get in contact with someone who's willing to help you out.
Who had the one with Dave Warner in the Pacific Northwest University, the older guy?
That was me. Yeah.
One of the things that he said to us that I really thought was important is contact your schools. Like, don't be afraid. If you have a school that you're in love with, don't be afraid to talk to them and see what opportunities they can provide you with, right? Be like, gosh, this is really important to me. I really like your school and I really want to get this experience. Do you guys have any ideas on alumni that might be willing to talk to me and interview? I think almost every school I've ever interacted with, that has been the case. Taylor Willis, who did the presentation about stress management this afternoon, her director, Dr. Sibila, very much involved and interested in talking to students. She's occupational therapy. But again, if you have a school that you have your heart set on, I would encourage you to think about that for sure. Was this information helpful for you today?
Yeah, I think it was nice to hear from the Home Heart or the Home Health Hospice. That was nice to hear somebody from the organization come and speak about what they're doing.
Okay. What would you like to see for April? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Michaela, go.
That's good.
Okay. What would you guys like to see for the next one? We have one more to go. We have one in April. We're talking about, we're going to establish a mentorship program. Would any of you be interested in participating in something like that with like maybe students who are going to be in the application process this summer to mentor those who maybe aren't quite ready to apply, but maybe want some support on what they've done?
Yeah, I would be extremely interested in that.
That would be super interesting.
Okay. What other things would you like to hear about that you didn't get to hear about this year during cohort?
I know that we're doing the mock interviews in a couple of weeks, but for those who are unable to make it, besides maybe watching the recordings, if there was, I don't know, I've never seen an application before or, seen the layout of the interview process. For me, that would be extremely helpful, but I don't know if you have something like that already set up or.
Sure, it's a great question. So it segues into what we are doing in the next 2 months. So we are doing the MMI, and we would encourage you, I would strongly encourage all of you in this room to participate as a student observer. I'm going to send the link to the form in this chat. I would encourage you, if you can make a Tuesday, you don't have to stay for both sessions. You can do one session or the other so that you're not throwing 3 hours at it. Observing interviews can be extremely beneficial. You don't have to be in the hot seat. You don't have to feel like, gosh, I don't know how an interview works. I'd strongly recommend that you participate. Everybody who does the MMI has learned a lot. I would share with you also, Isabella, that we are doing we do this every semester, and we're hoping to do this one the next one in person. I'd be so happy if we could manage that, because it's really cool to see it in person. But interestingly enough, all the interviews this year were conducted virtually. So that is one piece. We did do an interview and preparation workshop last Thursday. We'll be sending out in our pre-health table, we'll be sending out the link to the video for sure, but you can always check our pre-health stuff. So I would encourage you to fill out the secure form if you can, if you want to participate as a student observer. So you don't have to be in the hot seat. You can listen and learn. The interview workshop was the last Thursday. And then on April 6th, which is a Tuesday from 5 to 6:30, we are going to do an application workshop, which is open to all. It is going to serve as the application cohort meeting, but we're going to do a full length application workshop, and we plan to do that every year. The other one is that we have a pre-med and pre-dental and a pre-health pathway panel that always hits the week of Dead Week. And they're usually in the evening so we can get as many of our panelists to participate. We usually have 3 or 4 med students, pre-med students who got accepted, and 3 or 4 pre-dental. And then we are going to do our first ever OT, PT, vet, med, and PT, OT, farm, and vet, and optometry one, where we're going to kind of showcase all of those. But the pre-med one, it will be that week of a Dead Week before finals. So watch for those, because then you get to actually talk to students who did it, who applied, who got accepted. You could ask them questions about the process that kind of relates to the application workshop that we're going to produce, so you could see kind of some of the nuts and bolts. And then if you know you're probably going to be applying to med school in 2022, you get to graduate from the upperclassmen workshop cohorts to the application cohorts, and we'll go through that process next year. So we plan to set up our mentorship program and those other things. So please, please, please just let me know if you are interested in participating as a student observer for the MMI, and then also watch for those emails about those events. And then we have several different schools and programs coming to talk to our students. So as we get them set up, we send out those invites and notices and let you guys know they're happening. All right, well, that's it for tonight. Look forward for our last cohort meeting, which will be after spring